They were only 300, but they were not alone. Behind them, a handful of Greek allies stood shoulder to shoulder. Hoplites from Thespia, Thebes, and Phocis, each knowing the odds, each knowing the price. Surrounded by waves of warriors, perhaps 100,000 strong, the Greeks faced not just an army, but the weight of an empire. At Thermopylae, the hot gates, they made their stand, not to win, but to hold the line. Not for glory, but for Greece. To become something greater than soldiers, to become legend. To understand the courage of these men, we must step back to a world trembling on the edge of conquest. It was 480 BC. The Persian Empire stretched from the Nile to the Indus, a patchwork of nations under one crown, its armies a living tide. But Greece? Greece was a land of rivals. Athens, Sparta, Thebes, cities as proud as they were quarrelsome. Yet when Persian messengers demanded earth and water, symbols of surrender, some Greeks answered with steel. This wasn't just war, it was a collision of worlds. One side marched for domination, the other for liberty. And as Persian banners darkened the horizon, unity flickered to life in the hearts of the free. In the palace of Persepolis, Xerxes, son of Darius, ruled as King of Kings. His word was law from the deserts of Egypt to the mountains of India. But his father's ghost haunted him, defeat at Marathon still stinging. Xerxes would not be denied. He summoned an army so vast, ancient writers claimed it drank rivers dry. Modern minds say tens or hundreds of thousands, but to the Greeks it was a living nightmare. To cross into Greece, Xerxes ordered bridges of boats lashed across the Hellespont. When storms shattered them, he had the sea itself whipped. A king's rage against nature. For Xerxes, Greece was a jewel to be claimed. Resistance, an insult to be erased. In Sparta, boys became warriors before they became men. From age 7, they learned to fight, to suffer, to endure. Among them rose Leonidas, a king forged in hardship, who ate the same bitter broth as his soldiers, who bled and trained by their side. When Greece called for defenders, Leonidas didn't choose the youngest or strongest. He chose 300 Spartans, each a father with a living son, ensuring Sparta's bloodline would survive, even if they did not. This was no suicide mission. It was a calculated stand, a spark of defiance meant to buy time, to show the world that courage could hold back the storm. The Spartans marched north, their scarlet cloaks snapping in the wind, joined by thousands of allies, hoplites from Thespia, Thebes, Phocis, and beyond. Thermopylae, the hot gates, was a place where mountains squeezed the road to a narrow choke point. Here, numbers meant nothing. Here, skill and discipline would decide the day. The Greeks built a wall of stone and shields. Spears gleamed in the sun. Each man knew the odds. Each man chose to stay. As the Persian dust cloud rose on the horizon, the Greeks prepared to turn a mountain pass into a legend. Thermopylae was more than a battlefield. It was a fortress carved by the gods themselves. At its narrowest, only a handful of warriors could fight side by side. The Greek phalanx, shield locked to shield, became an unbreakable wall. But above, a secret path twisted through the hills. A shepherd's trail known to few. A flaw in the fortress waiting to be found. Still, Leonidas trusted in the courage of his men and the strength of the pass. And so they waited, as thunder rolled and the world held its breath. The Persians came like a living tide. Arrows blotted out the sun, but the Greeks crouched behind their shields, the sky raining death to no avail. Wave after wave of Persian infantry crashed against the wall of bronze and discipline. Spears thrust, shields slammed, and the narrow pass became a graveyard for Xerxes' pride. For 2 days, the Spartans and their allies stood unbroken. Even the immortals, Xerxes' elite guard, were thrown back, their name mocked by the stubborn line of Greeks. The hot gates blazed with the fury of battle, and the legend of the 300 was born in blood and fire. On the 3rd day, destiny turned on a whisper. Ephialtes, a local Greek, betrayed his homeland for gold, showing the Persians the secret path through the mountains. Leonidas learned of the encirclement. There was still time for most of the allies to escape and fight another day. But Leonidas, his 300 Spartans, 700 loyal Thespians, and a handful of Thebans chose to remain. They stood back to back, not for glory but for duty, to hold the line, to buy precious hours for Greece. As the Persians closed in, the defenders readied themselves for a final immortal stand. The final assault thundered down. Leonidas fell, pierced by Persian spears, but his men fought to recover his body, refusing to let it fall. When their spears shattered, they drew swords. When swords broke, they fought with hands and teeth. Not one surrendered. Not one fled. Xerxes, furious at their defiance, ordered their bodies buried beneath a mountain of arrows. But their sacrifice bought Greece time. In the months to come, at Salamis and Plataea, the Greeks would strike back, and history would remember the stand at Thermopylae. Thermopylae became more than a battle. It became a beacon, a story whispered through centuries, inspiring poets, generals, and rebels. Their sacrifice showed that even the mightiest empire could be slowed by courage, that even the smallest flame could resist the darkness. And in the end, it was the Greeks who turned the tide, defeating Xerxes at Salamis and Plataea, and proving that freedom is never given, it is defended. They were only 300, but their sacrifice was not measured in numbers, but in spirit. This is not just a tale of ancient war. It's a testament to will, to sacrifice, to legacy. This is the real story of the 300 Spartans.